Good evening, everyone. Randy Weir here, author R. Weir. Hopefully, everyone's doing well. We're starting out with the split screen tonight because we had a little technical difficulty here. So, I got my guest right up here, right off the bat. So, we'll get started right away. We have Liisa Kovala. Kovala, right? Yay!
Got it.
Yay! We were talking beforehand, and I'm like, I usually screw it up when the pressure's on, but I got it right. So, how are you doing?
I'm so well. How are you doing?
Great out here in Colorado. You're in Canada.
I'm
Uh,
in northern Ontario, so we're tons of snow. Although we finally have really bright sunny days, which is great, and a lot of melting today, which was there's hope in sight.
and how much snow do you usually get in the winter? Is this normal or is it more
Yeah,
abundant?
it actually is really normal for us to have lots and lots of snow. Last few years, I would say maybe not as much, but this year we've had a lot of snowfalls. So it's pretty typical for a winter, and we don't really get spring usually till end of March, but we can get a snowfall at the end of April. Like it's happened. So anything can happen in Canada.
So, do the Rocky Mountains extend up into your area there?
No, they're way
No?
farther west. So I'm in
West.
Ontario. I'm about maybe 3.5, 4 hours out of Toronto, north of Toronto.
Oh, okay. Ontario. See,
Yeah.
I understand. So, it shows you what I
Oh,
know about my provinces there.
we're a very, well, like America, we're a very big country and lots of different kinds
Yes.
of landscapes for sure. Yeah.
So, French speaking area? A lot of French?
Actually, there's quite a lot. I'm
Yeah.
in a town called Sudbury, and there were a lot of French settlers here, and but also there were Italians and Ukrainians and Finnish people and Germans, and so we have quite a multicultural community here. But definitely French is spoken. Like if you're walking around, like you'll hear French spoken for sure. And we all learned French at school because it's mandatory.
So, they teach both then
Yeah,
in school.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So for me, I just had like a class throughout my schooling of French. So I wouldn't say I'm fluent, but I can understand a little bit and I can read a little bit. But for instance, my husband was in a French immersion school, so he had a great deal of his schooling in French, which is, really great because he actually can have proper conversations. Like my vocabulary is a little limited when it comes to speaking French, but I can get by, basic signs and directions.
Yeah.
That's what you need for traveling.
Right. Yeah. So, okay. So, tell us a little bit about yourself. Obviously, you live in Canada. Give us some of the details about you.
Yeah.
Important stuff.
Oh goodness, where to start? Well, I was a high school teacher for a very long time. I taught for 28 years, English and AP research and creative writing. And I left teaching in 2022, just after COVID and all the online teaching and all the things. And I thought, okay, I'm done now. And I just turned to writing and just wanted to focus on the writing. And I actually found a program called Author Accelerator, a certification program for book coaching. So that is where I decided to land in terms because I didn't want to not work. I just wanted to change the kind of work I was doing. So now I'm helping other people write their books and writing my own books. And it's so delightful. It's like marrying all the kinds of things I loved when I was teaching, like interacting with students and helping them and all those things. Except now, instead of 90 students, I might have a handful of clients that I'm working with, much more manageable, and working on the books that they love and their memoir or fiction or whatever they're doing. So it's just like the dream job.
I was going to ask you that. Which is easier, dealing with high school students or your clients? So,
Yeah,
you
well,
kind of
I would
answered that.
say, but high school students, like I loved working with teens. They're just amazing. They're smart and lovely people, and they're becoming who they are. And I really, really adored it. There's moments, right? Like in any workplace, there are moments, and there are people with different kind of attitudes. But overall, I really, really liked it. Maybe I can say the structure or the board level or the Ministry of Education level, that was more challenging. It was the adults that were much more challenging. The students were fine.
Yeah. So, politics and the administration and, yeah,
Yeah.
this and that, sticking their nose into things, not letting.
Sure.
That's true of every job. My wife has an office right next to mine, and she works from home every day. And I hear her when she's on her calls, and you can just feel the tension in the air
Right?
sometimes. It kind of
I
drives you
know.
crazy.
Exactly. Yeah, it's lovely to be able to work now from home and to set my hours and to, take a break when I need it. And like it's just really freeing because I really did live by the bell. Like class started at a certain time, it ended at a certain time, and lunch was a certain time. And it took me a little while after leaving teaching to realize, oh, I don't have to have lunch at this exact moment or whatever it was. It really was a strange transition, but I love working from home. It's the best.
So I saw on your website you have a puppy,
Yeah,
Emmy.
Emmy.
So
Yes.
we love dogs. We've always had dogs. So what
Uh,
kind of
yeah.
dog, and how big is it going to get?
Yeah, Emmy is she's probably full grown now, just about. And she's a mini golden doodle. She's so delightful. I had a dog as a kid, and my husband never had a dog, but we've had cats the whole time we've been together. Um, and I kept bugging him about getting a dog. And finally, when I retired, well, left teaching and I changed careers,
Yeah.
I said, someday you're just going to come home and there's going to be a dog here. He's like, wow. And anyways, in the end, we kind of did some research, and my sister-in-law had one of her dogs over with us, and my husband fell in love with this dog, which wasn't a mini golden doodle, but a very similar size. He said, "Well, if our dog was like that, I guess it would be okay." And well, now we have this dog, and he is in love with her. Like they're best friends. So I knew he was a dog person. He just didn't know it. He should have just trusted me 20 years ago, 30 years ago. But she's
Yeah, the
great. And I
one,
love having her at home with me while I'm working because she reminds me, oh, it's time to get up and play. It's time to go outside. Like she's, like she's
yeah.
pretty, like she'll sleep at my feet when I'm working, and she's pretty, like comfortable. But then she'll have these moments where it's like, nope, time to get up. And that's good for me, right? Like, cause you know how it is when you're writing, you can really sit at your desk way too long. And so it's just nice to have a companion in the house while I'm doing the things.
So instead of having one of those little reminders on your watch or on your computer, your dog is your
Oh yeah,
reminder. You got to get up and stand up and walk and stretch your legs and get outside.
exactly. And it's like clockwork. I don't know how they can tell time, but like at a certain time in the morning, it's like time to play, and nothing else is going to suit. And if I look at the clock, it's always the same time in the morning. So I don't know. They have these internal clocks. It's incredible.
Yeah, we have a black lab. She jumps at the back door because she knows it's dinner time.
Yes, of course.
She's ready, and she jumps like 6 feet
Amazing.
in the air. I mean, it's amazing how far I'm worried she's getting older. She's going to break a
Yeah.
hip one of these days.
We have
Jumping.
a larger doodle down the street who does exactly that when Emmy comes down the road when we're having a walk. And it's amazing that they can jump straight up. Like, how is that possible? And the energy, and they're, big dogs. So they have some weight to them. It's kind of
Yeah.
crazy, but yeah.
So what's all involved in being this author accelerator coach? What did you have to go
Yeah.
through to get the certification?
Yeah, so it was pretty intensive, actually. So there's coursework. I'm gonna say I don't know if there's 100 plus hours of coursework. And then you have practicums, which I think are probably the best part of any training program because you're working with a client in real time. Like you're not like doing a pretend manuscript. You're actually working with their client on their manuscript. So there's one practicum where you're working with a client on this called a blueprint for a novel, and you're working through the process of laying down the foundations and giving them feedback and having a Zoom call and giving them feedback that way. There's another practicum that is with a client who is drafting their novel, and you're giving them feedback as they're drafting and giving them that Zoom call and that time to have a conversation. And then third one was interesting because it was for a client who was ready to pitch to publishers. And so you create a list of their ideal publishers that they might pitch to. You work on their query letter with them. It was really intensive, but it was really eye-opening too, to go through that process with a client. And then of course you send all your materials in, and they grade them and make sure that you're ready to do this work. And quite often people get a I think is called R&R or something. So just they need to revise certain sections of it, but it makes you feel confident that when you go and work with actual paid clients, you you've had that experience and you know what that looks like and what works for you, and how to approach it. So the training is pretty intensive, but it's really really good. And having been an English teacher and an English major, and I have a certificate of creative writing, and I went to Hebrew School for Writers, and I did all the things. I thought I knew a ton about writing. Like I'd written couple
Thank you.
books. I felt like I knew a ton. And then I took this program and I realized, oh, like it was the way certain things were delivered, or things that weren't talked about in other courses I'd taken, whatever it was just clicking, and it aligned with my thinking as well. So it was a really good fit. And I didn't even know this program existed when I was teaching. Like, of course, I wasn't looking for a new career then. I was just teaching, so I wasn't aware of the role of a book coach at all. I didn't even know about it. So it kind of came to me when I needed it, right? When I loved teaching, and I was like, okay, what's next? And I found this program. So perfect timing.
So do you have to recertify every certain number of years as well?
So, no, but they do have continuing programs. There's a community. There's like you can access like new documents. You can they upgrade certain courses, and then you can get access to those. And there are other courses I could take down the road if I want to. So there is a continuing education piece, but not necessarily like having to recertify, but more that you want to keep yourself, up to date with what's going on out there, right? And
Yeah.
so the community is really great. And we also have a community here in Canada of author accelerator book coaches. And we call ourselves Book Coaches Canada. And we get together bi-weekly to have conversations and to troubleshoot and just keep each other up to date and share resources and that kind of thing. So we've kind of created our own little Canadian group outside. Like, it's still part of the author accelerator community, but we have slightly different things happening here than in the States or Australia does, or somewhere in Europe, right? So tax implications and all those fun topics that I never want to think about, but those are kind of conversations we have to have. So we do in our group.
So when you were growing up, did you always feel like you were going to be a writer, an English teacher? Was that always, and were you a big book reader that absorbed a lot of stuff when you were
Yeah,
growing up?
100%.
I see a
I
lot
don't
of
know
books
if you've,
behind you.
yeah, yeah, yeah. This is my little office with some of my book coaching books, but I have a den that is just wall to
Full.
wall, and I really have to go through and start, I don't know, donating or something because it's getting out of control. So this is just like a pared down set of books. But yeah, when I was a kid, I don't know if you've seen these, but there was a time in the 70s when kids often had these books, and each page had like a place for your school photo, and a place for like who your teacher was and who your friends were, and then you'd write in what you wanted to be. So like all 12 grades, you had this kind of album almost of
Mhm.
what as you change over the years,
Right.
and activities, and you'd put your report card in there. So I still have that book,
Yeah.
and I was looking at it, and there's sort of grade one or grade two. I had said I wanted to be a teacher, a dancer, a writer. And so I did become a teacher. I'm a writer. And although I never became a professional dancer, I have been a rhythmic gymnast all through my school years. And then I've been a coach right up, and like I'm still coaching now. So I've been involved in a dance form for my whole life. So it was really interesting to look back and go, oh, I wanted to do that when I was really little. And of course, you don't think those things are going to necessarily happen, but here we are. I guess it was meant to be. I don't know. Maybe I manifested it at that age. I don't know.
Your destiny to do that. I know there was a lot of things that I wanted to do then and
Yeah.
didn't really do any of them. I became an IT person, and I would have never thought growing up I was going to be a computer
Yeah.
person. Still, I
Yeah. It's
started
really
building
interesting
them.
people have that. They're
Yeah,
either kind of driven towards it right from the beginning, or they come to it later for whatever
yeah.
reason. Like it's fascinating to see people's kind of journey.
Well, I think I had to wait for the technology to catch up with me. Maybe I always liked computers,
Yeah.
but I was, in the 60s, there really wasn't personal computers. It wasn't until really the
Right.
80s, and I was
Yeah.
older then, and then it was like, oh, this is what I like. And so I
Right.
always wanted to write. So
Yes.
who did you like to read growing up, and
When
who
I was,
and your
yeah,
influences?
I had a mom who gave me a lot of books, so I read a ton. And I remember like reading all of the Little House on the Prairie books, Laura Ingalls Wilder, devouring those. Anna Green Gables, who's, of course, East Coast Canadian, PEI. So I read all of those books as a kid. And then she started just getting me all the classics, right? All the Jane Austen, like, and it didn't occur to me that um, maybe I was a little young for them because I was a good reader. And so she just kept giving me more things.
Huh?
And it wasn't until later that I realized, oh, yeah, most of my friends who were like reading kind of came to those later in life, maybe late high school or early university. And I would think I was 12. But I think it was her influence because she loved to read and she loved these books. And so she kept just oh, see if you like this one, see if you like that one. And I just started to devour them. And I still go back, like Jane Austen, I'll go back every few years and read everything. Agatha Christie, I read all of it. And now I'm back to reading Agatha Christie again for the first time in, I don't know, 35 years. And it's so fun. I love it. So yeah, there's just, I'm an avid reader and have always been.
Do you remember who the murderer was? Does
Oh,
that not ruin the story for you because you already kind of know how it's going to come out? Or
no, because some of them are like right now I'm kind of going through the Marple ones and
yeah,
I'd forgotten so much. Like
right.
I'd remember a certain part and then I'm reading and I'm like, wait a minute. Like and I actually had forgotten how in some of the books Miss Marple is not really that predominant. Like she's really important to solving the crime, but you don't see her for chapters and chapters and chapters. And I'd forgotten that because I think we've absorbed the TV series or something like
Yeah.
that. So which changes the stories quite significantly. So it's kind of fun to go back because it's like it's back there somewhat, but not really. And I was pretty young when I read them. So yeah, it's been really delightful.
So did you find reading a way to therapeutic for you when you were growing up? Did you find a way to decompress, or did you just like to read just to read?
I think I didn't think about it. I think it just was something I did. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't I was very shy is what they would say now. Like I understand that I'm introverted, that which a lot of writers are. And
Mm-hmm.
but at the time I was labeled as shy. And I don't know that I was shy, but I was quiet. And I preferred those solitary activities where I could just like escape into this magical world and time could flow like a car ride or going to the camp and lazy days when there's nothing to do except swim and read a book. I mean, I could just devour books. So I think it just was something I did and I didn't think about it as being escaping anything or therapeutic, just something I did. My oldest brother was an avid reader too, and so that might have had something to do with it. My mom was a reader. So it's hard to say, but I think I just fell into it naturally. And of course, encouragement, like if somebody's bringing you books and you love them and you want the next one, it feels like kind of natural. I also love the bookmobile. Did you have that in your town when you were growing up?
Yeah, we had some of those. Yeah,
Yeah, so fun. I mean, I wish they would come
mobile
back.
free library, I guess you'd call
Yeah.
them. But yeah,
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 I loved the bookmobile day because we'd
yeah,
come and it was like this whole other set of books and you could wander in that little space. It was
yeah.
so good. So I guess I've always been geeky that way.
Well, it's amazing you brought that up because I completely forgot about that. They used to
Yeah.
have those. Well, yes, we had those growing up, driving around. I don't think anybody does that anymore.
Well, there's somebody on Instagram and I'm so jealous of her because she has
Yeah.
some kind of truck that she has created into sort of a bookstore. So it has sides that come down, and then when she parks, she puts it up, and you can see all the display. I think she's painted the whole thing pink. It's very fun looking, and she goes from different markets or fairs to, selling books. And I think this is like the dream job right there, is to just
Yeah.
like drive around in a truck and sell books. It'd be great.
So, did you write a lot when you were young? And do you remember some of that first stuff that you wrote? And do you have any of that
I
with you
do. I
anymore?
do. So I actually started, I think, by drawing, and I would draw characters and I would name them. And they were often old-fashioned looking clothing, and they were, I had storylines, and so I was visualizing them and not really writing about them, but in my head I was making up stories. And then I started writing some poetry, which my mom kept for me. At one point, I had a newspaper for for our street, and I think I was trying to get other kids to be involved and add to the newspaper, but nobody really wanted to. Maybe once in a while. And I would write out all the articles with a newsy kind of voice and what was happening. And I thought that was gone, but a few years ago, my friend who lived down the street at the time, she's now in BC in Vancouver, so quite on the other side of the country from me. And I guess she was going through all kinds of her stuff and found this newspaper, and she sent it to me. And I think I'm like 10, 11 years old. It's really fun like I'd forgotten I'd done it. And to look back and go, oh yeah, I have always needed to write. I've always needed to put things on paper and tell stories. So it's just ingrained, you know? I don't know why that is, but I think some of us just start out that way.
All right, so let's talk about your books. I don't know, remember which one of them is your first book, but
Yeah.
was that a project that took you a long time to finally come to fruition, or how did it all come to
Don't
pass?
even know how long. I
I've
was
had many say 10 years or more. So yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, so it was the first book was called Surviving Stutthof, which is about my father's experiences as a Finnish merchant marine sailor. That's the one. And he was incarcerated. He was imprisoned in Stutthof concentration camp in Poland. He was 16 years old. So when I was 15 and I'm in a history class learning about World War II, learning about the Holocaust, I knew my dad had a story. And I probably said to my mother, I'm gonna write that story someday. So years passed, and went to university and got a teaching job and had kids of my own and the whole thing. And then when I'm 40, my mom calls me and says, somebody wants to write your dad's story, but I told her my daughter's going to do that. So it took a little while before we got to it. My dad was at the time 84. And we spent probably 2012 to 2015, we worked on that book. And I self published it in 2015, and then the publisher picked it up and they republished it in 2017. So it actually had two iterations. Um, so that was the first book. That's the one where I thought, okay, I have to really learn these skills. So I went to University of Toronto's creative writing program, and had a mentor who I worked with on drafting, and really felt like, okay, like as an English teacher, I understood, but as a writer, it's a whole other thing to actually tell the
Sure.
story. So that's the book I learned how to tell the story with. And despite how many books I ever write, this will always be the most important one because it's my father's memories. And we spent months and months. I would go to his house every Sunday, and he would tell me stories about what happened, and I would write them down. And he read every version of this book. And I told him, if there's something I'm misrepresenting, or if it's not quite right, let me know and I'll change it. And so he was really, really involved. So it was very, very special time for us. And so that's the only nonfiction book I've written so far. But it was a really important one.
So is it written from his point of view?
That was the challenge. I was like, okay, do I write it in a first person I, as though it's his completely in his point of view, or do I do a close third POV? And I really debated about that. In fact, I wrote a couple of chapters in both just to see.
Right.
And in the end, I decided to go with third person close because I felt like I don't know, I think I felt uncomfortable claiming the I when it was my father. But I could write he and Arnie, and I could see things through his eyes, but the I of it, it just felt like it was I just decided I couldn't do it. And so this worked out quite well because it's narrative, like it's creative nonfiction, so it has that narrative stream. It reads like a novel, but it's his story and what happened to him. And I was able to travel to Poland and Germany, to the places he'd been, to this concentration camp. I was able to get his first hand accounts, of course. And so I did a ton of research. So I was able to verify a lot of things that had happened to him, and he didn't really know exactly when or where, but
Right.
and I was able to find the maps. I was able to see where the death marches went. I was able to see which
Right.
barges went and when. And so I was able to piece together the puzzle that he knew viscerally the experience of it, but he didn't necessarily know, this happened on this date with this many people, right? So I
Right.
was able to do all that background work. So it ended up being a pretty amazing project, and for a person who couldn't talk about his story for decades,
Right.
he it took him a long time to open up even to me, but eventually he was able to talk about what happened, and I'm sure there are things that he couldn't talk about or were buried. I think that
Right.
people suppress really difficult things, but he finally was able to do that. And then we would go to we would go to like book signings or some kind of event, and he would sit with me, and people would come and talk to him, and then he was able to talk about it with people. So he took him months to talk about it with me, but once he let that story out, there was a little bit of like acceptance, I think. Like it was okay to talk about it because for years he couldn't.
Well, yeah, I'm sure it was very, very emotional for him. Did he ever travel back to any of those places with you?
No,
No,
I
not at
asked
all.
him if he wanted to go with me on this trip, and he did not want to go. He just did
Yeah.
not. Well, I shouldn't say he never did, because he did go in. So my parents were married in 1958. He came to Canada in 51, and they were married in 58, and they went to Europe sort of on their honeymoon. And I think he did go to Poland at that time, to some of the locations, but not after that. But we did go to the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum with him because that was something he really wanted to do as a like for years since it was built. And so we decided to go on a family trip, and that was incredible and very, very moving. And we walked through together, and he was able to talk more about things he saw, and like different items would trigger a memory. So that was really intense. And then he was invited, along with other survivors and veterans, to the 20th anniversary of the Holocaust Museum. So we were able to go, my brother and myself and my husband and my father, to this like really lovely event, where he met all kinds of other people who had experienced very similar things that he had, and other veterans. And it was like the most moving thing.
Oh, I'm
Ellie
sure.
Wiesel was speaking. It was just incredible. So, yeah, very moving time in our life.
Well, that's a hard book to follow up with. So after you wrote that book, after all those years and put it together and everything, what came next for you? What was you decided to get into the fiction world, or
Yeah, so what happened was taking this University of Toronto course, this certificate of creative writing. So you don't just take courses in your genre. So I was, writing this nonfiction book, and I was taking a memoir class and a creative nonfiction class, and various classes that would help support me writing this book. But then there were other classes, and I've always loved fiction, as you know. And so there was fiction classes and short story classes and poetry and whatever. So you would take a range of classes. So I was in a fiction course, and of course, all the tools of fiction are used in creative nonfiction as well. So like it was all helping build the skill set. Um, and they said, okay, well, we want you to write this many pages and think of an idea. And I thought, oh, what am I going to write about? Because I'm right into my father's story. Like I'm really deep into this story. I thought, okay, well, how about I just use something about my dad's information to create a fictional story. So he was a little kid during the Finnish Winter War with Russia in 1939, 1940. He was just like, he would have been 10, 11 years old, and school stopped, and he described the bombs raining down on his city. And like, there was a lot there. And I thought, okay, what were the women doing? Like, what was my grandmother doing? What were my aunts doing? What were the women doing while this winter war was going on and the men were going to fight at the front lines with Russia? And so that's where the second book started, is I started writing about a young woman who is called she joined the Lottasvards, is what they're called. That's actually a Swedish word, but the Lottas were a paramilitary organization for women. And so they did all kinds of different roles during the war. And so I had my young woman be a nurse's assistant. And I created this story around, like, I'd already done the research on the Winter War. I already knew about these things. And so I had to learn about the Lottas and what they had done, and Finnish war children and all those things. So I was writing this fictional piece while I was writing my dad's because of this coursework. And so I was kind of writing two books at one time. And although one was fiction and one was nonfiction, they kind of complemented each other. And so that's what happened. And then I wrote the whole Winter War section and got to the end of that and realized, this woman's not leaving me alone. I just kept imagining her as an older woman in Northern Ontario, having immigrated and getting early onset Alzheimer's. And so that issue of memory and loss and all the things. And one of the reasons that came to me was because my dad started getting dementia, and I started witnessing the Alzheimer's affect how he behaved and things he did. And luckily, we had already, finished his book, so thank goodness. But his long-term memory was quite good for a long time. The short-term memory was not so good. So I used what I saw from him and then did more research about Alzheimer's to write about this woman who had been a Latitude in Finland during the war. So, I kept like, my dad has been an inspiration for a lot of things because I kept drawing on experiences, but in this case I was able to do a fictional character and do it from her point of view.
And which book was that?
This is Sisu's Winter War. So Sisu is her nickname. Her name is actually Meri, but she's sometimes called Sisu. Yeah, exactly. And the Winter War, of course, is the war with Finland and Russia in 39-40. But I also thought about, like, her own winter war, the winter of her life, and the struggles she has with Alzheimer's and the memory loss and all the things she's going through. So the title kind of wove in a couple of different ideas there. And Sisu is an important concept in the Finnish language. It means courage and determination and strength, resiliency. So Sisu is like one of those words, like we talk about as everyone, has it within them, and they need to pull it out when when they're faced with really tough times. And so the Finnish soldiers were often talked about as having Sisu, even in American, like in the, American newspapers during that time period, you'll hear them talk about the Finnish Sisu. And I think that's when that word became something that like more widely known, because they were, of course, a small little country facing off against Russia. And we know how that goes. It doesn't go well.
Yeah. So was this traditionally published as well, or did you
Yes, this was
self-publish this?
traditionally published by the same publisher who picked up my Surviving Stutthof. So they published those first two books.
So where'd you go from there?
So I have a tendency, I don't know how you do this, but I have a tendency to have three projects on the go. That's kind of I
I have
usually
two
have,
going right now. So
okay, oh yeah,
yeah.
right. I mean, so I usually have something that's getting close to being published, something that I'm writing, and something that's like percolating, like idea generation. So I usually
Sure.
have three things. So the next book that I wrote was like Water for Weary Souls, that I self-published last October. And I decided, oh, I'd really like to try my hand. That's the one. I really like to try my hand at a mystery. And so in my head, it was going to be a mystery novel. And then I started writing it, and it became more like it's historical fiction with a mystery. So it does have a mystery element for sure. It is centered around a mystery, but it's not I wouldn't call it a traditional mystery. It is really historical fiction. This one's set in my hometown of Sudbury, yeah, during the 30s, during the Depression, and two Finnish immigrant sisters come in from the farming community and come into town to try to get some work. And one of the sisters' body is found in Nolan Creek, and the other sister knows there's no way she would ever cross the ice when it was so unstable. And she's determined to find out what happened. The police say it's an accident. She's like, no, it's not an accident. And so we see her going through the process of trying to figure out what happened to her sister. So my mystery became, it was still a mystery, but it became really more a literary historical fiction with a mystery in it. And I loved writing it so much. So I'm happy with where it turned out, but it's just, sometimes you think you're going to do one thing and then the book says, no, we're not doing that. We're doing this. So
Right.
that's where I headed next for sure.
So did you have to do a lot of research? Obviously, this is a little bit earlier before
Yeah.
World War
And
II. So
for sure. Yeah. It was a lot of research around the Depression and, in particular, my town, Sudbury, and also Finnish immigrant women. I was lucky enough to find a book called Defiant Sisters by a researcher, a Finnish woman called Varpu Lindström, who did a whole research book about Finnish immigrant women. And I was reading this book as one does. I don't know. I just like to read this stuff. And then ideas come to you as you're reading. And that's when I hit upon the 1930s section, and she starts writing about what women were doing, especially the Finnish immigrant women. So she was saying, okay, they were working as domestics. Yeah, that makes sense to me, right? Of course they were. And, some other traditional roles. And then she's like, and also a lot of the women had boarding houses. And I thought, well, yeah, okay, that makes sense. I've heard about the boarding houses. In fact, my dad lived in a boarding house in the early 50s. So that made sense to me. And then she was saying, and some of the women were bootleggers. And I thought, ooh, that's interesting. And some of them were madams. Um, and I thought, okay, here we go. We've got a place for these girls to live, a madam who is a fierce and protective of her girls and is a bootlegger, and minors who like to frequent this place, right? And a crime that's happened, and the police are involved, some shady business. And I thought, okay, I think there's a story here now. So sometimes digging into the history gives you the ideas for the story, and you just pick up little bits of it, and it becomes something really fun to write. So it was really, because those are not the stories my parents told me about Finnish immigrants. Like, I didn't know about brothels or prostitutes. Like, that was not on the radar. I don't know why.
they didn't teach that in school either,
They did
right?
not
Yeah.
teach that in school.
So why did you decide to self-publish that one? Was that a just
Yeah, so there was conversations with my publisher about this one, and I thought it was going to be published by her for a long time. And then we were getting to a stage where, it was looking like it was moving forward, and it's a very small press here, and so they have only so many books out a year, and I thought, okay, so when is this going to come out? And she thought, okay, well, it'll be 2 years, and I thought 2 more years, and
yeah,
meanwhile, I have two other books lined up that were like
right.
quote unquote done. And I thought, okay, I don't think I want to wait 2 years. So I just thought, this is a good opportunity for me to take it into my own hands. Having self published the first book in 2015, I know things had changed in that, self publishing sphere, and I wasn't as comfortable with it anymore. So I thought this is a good time for me to learn this. And because I work with a lot of clients who do want to self publish, some of them want to traditionally publish, some want to do it themselves. I thought, okay, well, I can learn this and be able to help them, right? I'll have some understanding of the process and what they need to do. And it turns out I really like self publishing because I get to make all the decisions. Who
Yeah,
knew? I mean, that's the Aries in me, I think. I like that
sure.
for sure.
I'm self-published, and it's the same thing with me.
Yeah,
My wife
amazing.
would say I'm a control freak, but
Yeah. Well,
It's
it's true, right? Like, and you're not waiting, and you're not like you just you get to decide for yourself what that's going to look like. And I think a lot of us feel like if it goes well, it's on us, and if it doesn't go well, it's on us, and I'm okay with that. Like it's fine. When you're with a publisher, there's some advantages to that. Definitely, there's some doors that might open for a person, and depending on if you're a small house or a big house, you might have more control or less control or whatever it is. But I think all the publishing paths today are legitimate. It's just you have to decide what's right for you and your personality or the particular book. I think like I would never not publish traditionally again, but it would depend on the book and what I wanted the goal for that book to be. And so it's pretty important for people to just investigate their options and see what it is they want. And if they want to take on all the there's a
yeah.
lot to learn up front when you're self-publishing.
Well, you went to school for that, right? So at
Yeah,
least
well,
for
it
some of it.
helps, right?
Yeah.
It does help. Yeah, for sure. And now I feel like I have the resources, the people to go to say, hey, how I understand. What about this? Like, and I have those resources in a way that a couple years ago I didn't have those people in my corner. So now I know who to ask, and that's important, right? As writers, we don't have to do everything alone.
So then the other two books you were talking about,
Hmm.
you put those under a different name, a different pseudonym, right? Is that the
Well,
one?
yes and no. So my cozy mysteries are under a pseudonym. I have
Oh,
two
okay.
other manuscripts written. So,
Ah,
like I
very
say,
good.
I just have these things. So I have one that's not published yet, and I haven't decided what to do with it yet, but I think I'll self-publish it, but probably not for another year. And also, it's about a Finnish war child, also during the Winter War, and another one that I'm still having to do some research on and edit, and that's about Sointila, which is a Finnish utopian society that was on Malcolm Island at the turn of the century. So that's a book in progress. So yeah,
Mhm.
that it's why I kind of like, okay, I'm going to take over the self-publishing thing because I have all these books sort of sitting on my laptop saying, "Hey, get back to me." So in the meantime, I decided to take a little break from writing historical fiction, which is kind of my go-to. And I've been always publishing it under my name, Liisa Kovala, which is my maiden name. And so actually, I talked about my grandmother earlier in Finland. Her name was Anna-Liisa, and my name is actually her name, Anna-Liisa. So I have exactly her name, Anna-Liisa Kovala. And so I thought I'm going to write a cozy mystery because remember I wanted to write a mystery before. this,
Mhm.
time, this time I'm serious. I'm going to write a mystery.
A
And I
true
thought,
one.
okay, I'm going to do this. And I decided to go with cozies because I just love them. That's like, love Agatha Christie and all kinds of
Yeah.
cozies. And yeah, I decided to have a little bit of that Nordic bent. I'm always writing about Finnish characters in my historical fiction, but I thought, okay, I'm going to lean to the Scandinavian Nordic traditions, food, culture. So it's a small, quaint, quirky characters in a northern fictional town called Lakewood. And yeah, I just decided, okay, I'm gonna just go for it. And so I decided to plan 6 books in the series. And I've written the first two, which are coming out in
Mhm.
March and April. And it's called the Huga House Cozy Mystery Series because I don't know if everyone's familiar with Huga. It's been a very popularized idea, a Danish and Norwegian idea of comfort and serenity and relaxation and all those things. And I thought, oh, Huga is a perfect name for an events place, like a house that is for events and weddings and small, book clubs or whatever. And then, of course, what happens at Huga House? Well, a murder. So why would
Not very relaxing, huh?
right? Right? Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm having lots of fun with that series. And so I decided to go for a pen name. And I used my first name, Annalisa, and Jensen happens to be my husband's last name. So my kids have that last name. So the name is, I feel like it's almost mine. I didn't take Jensen on, but my kids are Jensen. So
Mhm.
it's just my alter ego for the cozy mysteries. And it sort of keeps them in my mind a little separate, right? The historical mysteries are this and the cozies are this. And I'm the same person and I'm talk about that openly, but also you're not going to go and pick up a cozy thinking it's going to be a historical fiction about
Right.
some Finnish war. It's going
Right.
to be a lot lighter than that.
So let's see. I clicked on it. Did it not come up? There we go. So that was the
There's
first
that
one?
first one. Yeah, that's the first one, Huga and Homicide. So
Okay.
this is the very first book. The protagonist, Minna, is an interior designer, and she and her friend, she's moved back to her hometown of Lakewood, and her best friend Christy and she are going to open. Well, they buy this old kind of grand old house on the lake, and have to renovate it, and they're gonna, have be able to have guests there, like almost like a B&B, but they can have weddings, they can have retreats and all the things, and it's going to be a great new path in life. And it's opening day of Hygge House, and they have everyone coming to open this place. And what happens? Minna finds a dead body on the doorstep. So not a great way to start your new business, but so fun to write. So fun.
So this one is not out yet. It's coming out in March.
It'll come out March 3rd.
Okay.
It's
And,
pre-order, but like the physical
right.
copy is not till March 3rd. Yeah.
And then you sent me a cover for book two. So when is?
Yeah, book two is coming out in April.
Oh, so you're
So
going to have them coming out one month after another? Wow.
yeah, I'm going to tell you the truth of that. That the story.
Okay.
I hope that you sometimes do these things, because I don't know how I got myself into this. So sometimes I do things while I'm like watching Netflix and I'm on my laptop and I'm just like, oh, I'll just like put this up for pre-order. Well, I might as well put the other one up for pre-order too. And I accidentally
Put
put
the
them for
wrong
the
date.
same date in
Oh,
March. And if you know about Amazon, how they work, KDP, if you get the wrong date, you can change it, but only by 60 days or something like that.
yeah.
And if you don't do it that way, they will not allow you to have pre-orders for a year. So I said, oh, okay, because I was going to have this come out like 4 months later. And so I was able to make it a month later, but that was not what I was planning. But I like a deadline. A deadline is good. It's fine. And in fact, today I was just proofreading the final copy of that, so it is ready. And it really did make me say, okay, I can't sit on this because it's coming out way sooner than I planned,
Right.
and I'm really happy with it. So the third one will come out, I promise, not till August. Like now I have some time. I don't have to rush
Still
it.
pretty close. Three books in 6 months.
Yeah, yeah, it's faster than I thought I
Well,
could do, because the historical takes me 2-3 years, and the cozies, I think it's because I did so much upfront planning. Like I know where the whole series is going. I know these characters. I know this place. So once you have that all established, then it's the puzzle of the murder and the suspects. And so each book is different, obviously, and you have new characters coming in, but the basic underlying world is built. So I think that may be why. And I don't have to do nearly as much research. So that helps. So yeah, I'm actually shocked myself that I was able to write as quickly as I did on these ones, because that's not me when I'm writing historical fiction. But it is a slightly different, different style too. Like it's a little more, they're shorter, they move a little bit faster,
mhm.
a little bit more dialogue intensive, more page turnery, whereas the historical are a little bit more character, slower,
Right.
it's
Yeah,
more literary.
sure. So we're about at 50 minutes, so we want to make sure we get talk about everything. So you've got 6 books planned in that series. Do you
Yes.
have anything else that's kind of churning around in your brain that may be something a little different?
I definitely need to get those other two historical ones
Yeah.
out. So I'm probably going to pace those like a year or so in between. Um, and then I was thinking, like, I would love to do another series, because I do love this whole idea of just setting up the world and just like playing there for a long time. Like it's really fun. Um, but I'm not entirely sure what I want to do yet, whether it will be another cozy series. I've toyed with romance, And I've thought about that off and on for a long time. But the truth is, I don't really read that much romance. So
Yeah.
maybe that's not a good idea. I don't know. But of course,
Yeah.
when I start to dig into a new genre, I do dig into the work. Like I start reading a ton in that genre too, just to, familiarize myself. I kind of love the idea of thrillers too. I love a good thriller. Love
Mhm.
that. So I'm kind of keeping that door open. And what usually happens is that the idea will come and then it just sparks and I know that's the one. But right now I'm just kind of back and forth and thinking about things. But I'm pretty invested in finishing this cozy mystery series, so I better not depart too soon from it.
Well, the thriller series usually is a little grittier and
Yes.
all that. So you might need to have another pen name. Who knows, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, I guess so because that could be confusing too.
Yeah.
And I've been told both. I don't know what you've heard, but some folks say, "Oh no, just keep your name for all the things," which is probably easier. And some people say, "No, it's better to have a pen name if the genres are really different." So I don't know. I'm gonna have
Yeah.
to think about that. Well,
Well, I haven't
people
written
let
any
me know.
romance novels, so I don't have to worry about that stuff.
That's it.
All my stuff is crime and thrillers and all that, so I
Yeah,
don't have to
fair.
worry.
And I'm also a huge sci-fi fan.
Yeah.
But I've never really thought about writing it as much, but I love it, right? I love it. So, sometimes I just want a challenge and to try
Sure.
something new, but we'll see. We'll see. I'm not going to make any promises.
Well, self-publishing, you can do whatever you want. So,
Yeah,
don't let anybody tell you otherwise.
yeah, it's true.
So when you were talking earlier, I got the sense that you were a pantser, but then later on, it sounded like you might be a plotter. So
Plotter.
are you one of those that kind of sits in between a
Yeah,
little bit?
I'm definitely in between. I have tried
Yeah.
all the things. I've tried pantsing and realized that I can totally take too many turns and get lost, and then I spend too much time revising and editing.
That's a lot of fun,
Um,
though. I enjoy
yeah,
that.
it is
That's the
fun.
way
It
I
is
am.
fun. Since doing this author accelerator program, I've been doing the blueprint, and so it's really lovely to just like sort of sink into the ideas, like making some decisions early on, and then the inside outline is a tool that I've been using for all my books now, and it's an outline, but it's really flexible, so
Right.
you're not stuck to it. But you have a good sense of where the story is going and why it matters to the character. And so I'll work out the outline. And then as I'm writing, if it goes in another direction, I go with it. Like I don't go, oh, well, that's not on the outline. Like I just go, okay, go change the outline, make sure I make a note of that, and then make sure the next thing makes sense with it. Right.
Right.
So, yeah, I'm definitely kind of in between. Like I let myself just go where it's going to go. But having a plan is really great because it saves a ton of time. And there's not that sitting down to the desk and saying, well, what am I going to write today? Like, I know where I'm headed. I know where that chapter is, what the chapter's about. But also, what actually is happening in that chapter can really change depending on, the day I'm working on it. So it's
So what do
fun.
you tell your clients?
Oh, with the clients, I work through the blueprint with them for sure, even if they have a draft done. Because what often happens is they might be partway through a draft or a full draft, and they go back to the blueprint that they probably don't know anything about, and then we do it together. And it will open up things for them that they didn't realize, and it'll make it. They'll kind of get redirected, and they'll figure out what was missing or why their story got stalled in the first place. And so
Mhm.
we work through those foundational elements. And then even if they have a draft, I often have them go back and say, okay, plot out what you have. Like give us like what happens and why it matters for each of the scenes. And then we can see what's wrong. Like why is it not flowing? Why is it stalled out here? Why does it in the middle kind of sag? And then we can go back in and kind of like tweak that. And then they have all of a sudden a direction for writing, which is incredible. So I use all these author accelerator tools myself, and I'm
Mhm.
using them with my clients, and it seems to be working. And some of them definitely want to be pantsers, and some of them definitely want really, really solid plots. But a
Right.
lot of writers are somewhere in between and just need, some kind of framework to work with to feel like, okay, I know where I'm headed.
So we're getting to 55 minutes here. So I always ask this question of all my guests. The name of the show is Bringing Life to Characters.
Yeah.
So what is it you do to get those characters to jump off the page. Obviously, the nonfiction was a little different because you already had those characters, but you
Sure.
still had to get them right. You
Yeah.
know, you still had to work them in and get them correctly. But what is it? What do you find that's magic? Because characters are really the guts of your story. I mean,
Yeah.
they're very so important.
So important. And we're reading the story. We think sometimes we're reading the story for what happens, but we're not. We're reading for what happens to the character and how they're reacting and how they feel about it and how they transform. So for me, whenever I'm thinking about the characters, yeah, like what's going to happen next is so important to keep the story moving forward, but it's their reaction, their interiority around it. It's their, like, because we as readers, we have this incredible facility, like our brain research says that we will experience what we're reading on the page as though it's happening to us. Like our brainwaves show that it's happening to us. So if we can explain, like as we're writing our characters and what's going on, if we can let the reader into their interiority, now we're with them and we're feeling it too. And so now it's not just like, oh, they made a decision or this happened, but we can feel how they feel about it, and that will make it so much more visceral for us as readers, and we want to be like we're cheering for them, right? We want to know what's going to happen. And I think that's how we can keep our readers reading, because the characters are feel real to us.
Hmm. Is that something you spend a lot of time with when you're doing your coaching? Is a big part of the coach? Uh,
Yeah, like I think when I'm writers have like different skill sets. Like for instance, I'm working with a group of writers right now, and I have a couple writers who are just so they write so beautifully, sensory details, description, place. It's so gorgeous. And then, some dialogue, which is pretty good. And then I'll be like, but what is like how is that person reacting to what just happened to them? And I'm like, as a reader, wondering what's going on there. So it's like reminding the writer that the reader is not in their head. Like you might know what you mean by that, but the reader doesn't understand it unless you kind of give us some way of understanding it through what they say, how they act, how they, what they say to somebody versus what's going on in their head, all of those kinds of intricacies. So it's just finding the right balance, right, between all of those things. And, you recognizing somebody has really great skills in one area, but in another area, maybe we need to work on dialogue. Maybe we need to work on interiority. For some people, even description that's like, they don't even want to write that. So trying to keep a good balance, but making sure we can really tie into the character and feel like we relate to them. And then I think that will strengthen the story for sure.
well, you kind of answered my next question. What advice do you give aspiring authors? Because that sounds like that's good advice there.
Yeah, it is good. I also think I say the same two things all the time. So apologize if people have heard me say it before, but the first one is read widely. Just read widely. Read in your genre, read outside of it, read great stuff, read terrible stuff, read everything. But read like a writer, right? Like look at what the author's doing. And the other one is start before you're ready. And I say that because a lot of writers will say, well, I'm going to write a book when I retire. I'm going to write my book after I've done all the research. I'm going to write my book like, there's always, when my kids are older, there's always a reason to wait. But just don't wait. Just start now, because we really only get better as writers by writing. Like we can all give you advice and do developmental edits and coach you, and we can do all those things. But at the end of the day, you just write, just keep writing, and you'll find your voice, and you'll learn how to tell the story, and you'll get your groove, right? So don't wait, just start in any small way that you can.
Are you one of those that tries to write every day? And is that something that you try to coach that you
Yeah, it's a
need to
great.
sit down and force yourself even sometimes?
So, such a good question. I am just like every other writer I think out there who struggles to sit down to write. Like, I love having written, I even love writing. I find it so hard to sit down to it. It's so difficult. So, how I've kind of dealt with that is I have something called the Women Writing Circle, and we meet on Mondays from 6:30 to 8 Eastern, and we write together. And again, that brain neuron, that mirroring neuron, if other people are writing, even on Zoom, you will be like, oh, that's what we're doing. And you'll stay and you'll do it. Whereas when you're on your own, like I might sit down for a half an hour and then go, oh, well, I think I'm going to go watch Netflix now. so, so I've built in these opportunities to work with other writers to support them, but I'm also doing the work myself and they see that. So that's been really fun. I do write something every day, but it's not always the novel. It like I mean I'm there's always writing to be done. So no, I'm not a person who writes every day, and I think that might come from the years when I was teaching, and I had to fit it in the 15 minutes at lunch, and I had to fit it in while I was dropping my kid off at I don't know dance and sitting in the car and writing for the hour while they're in dance class. Like I can write anywhere for any amount of time, not a problem. So I've always fitted in here and there. So now, even though I'm home and I could write every day, I still don't. I have these like blocks of time where I'm doing this, I do that. So like today was an editing day. I didn't write at all. I just edited, and I just focused on that. So I think tomorrow will be like, okay, gotta start planning book 3. So yeah,
Well, and being self-published too, there's more to it as well. There
yes,
is marketing things you have to do, and
yes,
social media gets in the way because, heaven forbid, I hate social media. A lot of it is so toxic these days,
yes.
but you have to do it. I mean, it's
Right.
just things.
You absolutely do. And just finding a way to try and enjoy it because it can be so toxic. But luckily, the people on social media who are readers and writers tend to be kinder, gentler people. We don't get into all the other things. Focus on,
Yeah, well, unfortunately, the algorithms sometimes throw
yeah,
things at you that you don't necessarily want, and
yeah,
it's
very
it's one
true.
of those things that you fight
And
with.
then
I
you start
know.
scrolling.
Yeah, yeah, it's like, okay, come on, come on, come on. Yeah,
Yeah,
something like that. Yeah.
it's
I mean,
true.
I don't even get on Twitter, and I still call it Twitter. I know it's X.
Yes.
I don't even get on that anymore because
Yeah.
it's so
Yeah.
bad.
Same. Same. I took myself off of that, even though there were people I really liked to follow there that were
Yeah.
really interesting. I'm off it too because it just, yeah, that one kind of went the wrong direction for me.
So you have a podcast yourself, correct? And what do
Yeah.
you talk about on your podcast?
Yeah, so it's called Women Writing. And so I talk to authors and publishers and booksellers, anyone in the publishing industry. I had a literary agent, and we talk about all things connected to writing. And it's really, really fun to just see different perspectives and how different folks. Like I had one woman on a while back, Holly Darling, and she talked about marketing. And I had another woman on who talked about dictation and how writers can use dictation for their writing. So that was really interesting, right? Like not a thing I know how to do, but actually if you like the people who do it love it and find it's very effective. So I love getting guests on who have a different perspective on the industry because I know this much and then they know so many things and between all of us we
Yeah,
we know a lot.
right. Well, that's kind of why I do this show. It's interesting to talk to other authors, hear about their journey.
Yeah,
Everyone gets to the place different ways. Some kind of follow similar paths, but
it's true.
their backgrounds and everything else. Some people, I interviewed a lot of journalists. Interviewed a lot of English teachers.
Yes.
People ask me that too. Was that your strength in school? English? No, absolutely not.
Amazing.
So yeah, that's why I have to have a good editor.
That's right.
That's why.
Yes. Gold. They're gold.
Yeah. So I know you've got a couple of websites here.
Hmm.
And on your website, it seems like that's the best place to
Yeah.
get in contact you if they're interested in your coaching
Yeah.
business. I'm assuming you're still
Yes. Yeah.
accepting clients.
Yeah, for sure.
Never
Yeah.
anything of having too many, right?
No, yeah, that's the thing, right? You don't want to have so many that you can't get the work done, but you do want to have a nice balance. So that website is really everything. It has my books, it has the cozies, it has information about book coaching, and there's a contact form so people can just fill that out. And then the Substack is my newsletter. So that comes out, it has the podcast. Of course, you can find the podcast on other platforms for sure. and I have a women writing feature which comes out on biweekly on Saturdays, and it's again just exploring how do you find time, space to write, creativity, all the all the things we struggle with, and
Sure.
those are very inspirational to me. And then every other Saturday, I either write about writing cozies, or I write about writing just and book coaching in general. So I kind of have two things that come out a week for subscribers, a podcast and then an article. So yeah, that's the most of the things. I'm on Instagram and Facebook, but all
Right.
of those things are accessible from the webpage.
And it looks, I saw one of the pages there, you give away a free book as well for signing up. Is that also?
I do, yeah. So we talked about that concept of Sisu, and I really think writers sometimes just need Sisu in this day and age to sit down and get it done. So this workbook has a bunch of strategies for how to do that. And I think maybe I'm leaning into the problems I've had and trying to sort through how other people can maybe approach it. And so hopefully people will find something useful for themselves in that little workbook.
And do you have any upcoming events you're going to be doing, traveling?
I am. Yeah. So I'm actually this Sunday, I'm going to an event in Ottawa, and I want to say it's at the Robert Plant greenhouse. And
Robert
which I
Plant
think
as
is
in Led
amazing that
Zeppelin,
they're going to have
Robert
a
Plant?
book. What's that?
As in Robert Plant, Led Zeppelin, Robert Plant?
That's what I asked too.
I
That was my
was
first
like,
question.
I mean,
I
there's only
wish.
one Robert Plant in my mind, but I mean, I'm sure
Apparently
there's more than
not.
one in the world. But
I thought that was the best name. I hope that that person is there. I'm going to ask him. But yeah, I think that's kind of cool to have a book event in a greenhouse. That's a great way to get people
yeah,
out and to feel like spring is coming. And I will have a first book signing for Huga and Homicide on March 14th in Sudbury, which is my hometown, at Perk and Pine Cafe. And so there's sort of things kind of coming up over the summer where I'll be doing little events. So no big travels at the moment, but sort of some Ontario things, which is going to be fun.
good. And then I think you had a few awards that you've won for your books, right? I mean, I thought I saw a couple on your.
Yeah, so Surviving Stutthof was shortlisted for a Northern Lit Award, and then it ended up getting published in Finland by Docendo and translated into Finnish. So that was really amazing because I know my father had died in 2018, and it was published in Finland, I want to say 2020, and I know that he would have just been so thrilled that it was in his native tongue. So that was really exciting. And then recently, like Water for Weary Souls, won a Global Book Award, which was delightful because, as a first time, like as having self-published that one and putting it out into the world, and then for it to be acknowledged like that, that was really lovely. So yeah, it's kind of nice to feel like, okay, we're on the right track here.
Yeah,
Hopefully, hopefully people enjoy it.
yeah, that's great. All right. Well, we're about an hour and 10 minutes. So, is there anything else we needed to cover or talk about? You're such a busy person. I don't
Oh
want
my
to keep you
gosh.
away from your work.
It's all good. Well, for me right now it's 9 p.m., so you're not taking me away from anything. This is the time I'm happy that I'm making a little bit of sense. I'm not sure that I'm completely coherent because it's almost bedtime. But it's been really really fun chatting with you, Randy, and I really appreciate this conversation and the opportunity to talk to your folks. And
Yeah.
thanks so much. And I love your hockey t-shirt. We talked about hockey before.
Yes. We talked about hockey. You weren't a big hockey fan. We are going to bring that up.
Yeah, I'm
It's
sorry.
the
I'm
Maple
sorry, all the
Leafs.
Canadians. I mean, I guess I cheer mostly when there's a really big event. And you know what? I do love a live game, though. I won't lie about that. I've been to some good live games, and that's very exciting to be there. But watching on TV, can take
A
it or
little
leave it.
harder to follow on TV. I've gotten better through the years. Live is the best way. I remember seeing Gretzky play here in Colorado years and years and years ago. That shows you how old I am. And it was incredible. And we had pretty decent seats. But yeah, it's unbelievable. And on the back, and I could turn around now if it sees, but
Nice.
Nate McKinnon, he's an Avalanche here. So, I root for the USA, but I also root for Canada because there's so many
Yeah.
Colorado Avalanche players that play on
Yeah.
the Canadian teams because
I
Kevin
know. This
Carr
is
and
the thing. Yeah, and
Yeah,
when I see Finland and Canada play together, I mean, I'm rooting for everybody. Like it
yeah,
doesn't matter because I feel like connected to both. But it's true because so many Canadian players play in the States and so many Americans play in
yeah.
Canada, and so like, I mean, it's just they're different teams, but we're actually all just like we're all together.
Yeah, well, and there's a lot of European. I mean, it's amazing in the Olympics how many of those teams. Sweden, they're all NHL players. Finland, I think, is just about all NHL players. And of course, Canada and USA. And
Yeah,
yeah, there's
it's
so many
actually
great players. And if Russia was, if it weren't for the war,
yeah,
they would have a lot of NHL players too, because
that's
there's a
right.
huge number playing
Yeah,
in the NHL as
100%.
well. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
so
all right, well,
incredible.
great. Well,
Yeah,
thank
so
you. I appreciate you coming on the show. Good luck with the release of the two new books back to back.
oh, that's kind.
Hopefully it all goes well. The Cozy Mystery.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I really
And
appreciate it.
hopefully we'll run into you somewhere along the line. If I
Amazing.
ever make it across the border, we were going to try to
Yeah.
go to BoucherCon in
Oh, I'm going
October.
there.
Are you
You,
going to BoucherCon?
I
We were going to
am.
go, and we changed our minds, and because of all the political stuff going
Yeah,
on here right now, and we were
yeah,
a little worried about traveling and all
yeah.
that, and
It makes
so we
sense.
were just kind of well, we really wanted to go, and
Yeah.
I don't know, we might change our mind later. We'll see, but
All right. Well, if you go, look for me. I'll be watching for you, and it's going to be a fun event. So,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I've been went to the one in Nashville a few years ago, and it was a lot of fun. It
amazing.
was exhausting, but it was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
amazing. So good.
Well, thank you, Lisa. Take care, and we will hopefully talk to you down the road.
Okay, thanks. Bye.
All right. All right. Well, thanks everyone. I got to work on my windows here. They didn't work out correctly tonight, so we'll get that straightened out going down the road. But thanks so much for being here. I don't have a guest next week. The next one's going to be Seth uh, Voorhees. Voorhees. I was looking that up, so I'm going to screw that up too. But March 3rd at 6 p.m. He will be on my next guest, and then we'll be traveling to Tucson for a couple of weeks. So we won't be. I won't have a show for a couple of weeks, and I didn't want to try to deal with a internet connection while we were out of town. So, but take care, everyone, and we will talk to you in a couple of weeks.